I wouldn't say she was rude, but she just had this air of like, I know everything. And I never watched Frozen. I actually did some research about her after. I never watched Frozen, and I didn't really know her, you know, because I don't really, other than Glee. I remember seeing her in Glee because I love Glee. Glee is one of my favorite shows of all time. I remember that I saw her somewhere. Hi everyone, welcome back to No Light Tarot. My name is Holly. So grateful to have you all. I started doing this fun, just for fun, really. So please don't take it seriously. Personal celebrity stories, and it's just been so fun. So I decided to keep doing it. I've been asked some more questions, and like I've said before, in my past video like this, I don't talk about people that I have known or personally known, because I just don't believe in doing that. So you'll never get it out of me. I've made verbal promises to famous people that I've been romantically with or had in my life that I will never do that, and I'm a person of my word, so you'll never ever get it out of me. Okay. But I do have some fun, because I used to work in the restaurant business, because I used to work at different restaurants and so forth, and I just teach yoga in Hollywood, and you know how that goes. Literally, I taught yoga in Hollywood. So you know how that goes. I've met a lot of celebrities, and a lot of them have not been nice. Some of them have been very nice and very kind too, but this is you know, it's funny though, a lot of the kind ones I developed personal relationships. Well, not personal like that much. A few, like seriously personal. But I think maybe that's why I have more stories of people that are not close to me, that are removed, that are famous, that I didn't have pleasant interactions with. Because when they were kind, I wanted to kind of talk to them more and stuff like that on a human to human level. So these are the questions that some of you asked me or sent to me to answer. So somebody said in the comment section, or I believe this was the comment section, I can't remember, what British celebrities have you met? So I used to live in London, and there I saw a lot of celebrities, British celebrities, but they're not really like American celebrities, you know. They don't really even though there's paparazzi and stuff, you don't really, how do I say it, especially because I lived right in central London. I used to live not off of Oxford Road, but I lived a street off of Oxford Road, which, if you're familiar with London, it was almost very central. And so I would see a lot of British celebrities. I remember one time I saw Colin Farrell in person, but just saw. I saw the guy from Blue, if you're familiar with, I forgot his name. I still have such a crush on him too, which is so funny. I saw two guys from Blue actually. I saw them at Pizza Hut randomly. They were eating at Pizza Hut, but I walked past Pizza Hut. I mean, I love Pizza Hut, so there's nothing to say bad about Pizza Hut. Yeah, so one British celebrity, well, two that I've met. Emma Watson. She used to come to a restaurant that I used to work at, Tribeca, the one that I talk about quite often. And the restaurant, if you know the story about my Cameron Diaz story, the restaurant that I worked at there, I met Ray Fiennes, and he was such a gentleman, really lovely, very kind. Actually, then, because I'm a huge fan of his acting, I think he's one of the best actors. He was Voldemort, if you guys don't know that. Voldemort. He's just done a lot of stuff. He was an English patient, and I think he actually thought I was British, which I get quite often. But I was like, no, I'm not British. He was like, where are you from? And he was very down to earth, very down to earth, a really cool guy. I'm sure I've met others, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But those two, actually, I have forgotten the Ray Fiennes, and somebody had to remind me recently. because we're talking about Harry Potter, and yeah, so he was a very cool, down to earth guy. Next question, revise. Oh yeah, so I wanted to go back to the dating one. Somebody had asked me who I would date that I've met, and actually at the restaurant that I often talk about in Tribeca, the one that I met Emma Watson at, there were so many celebrities that came in. I feel, actually, if you know my story about, what's that guy's name again? Jake Gyllenhaal's mother. That's the same place. Like, we would have so many different stories working there. And Bradley Cooper too, and so forth and so forth. But it was such a fun place to work at. Sometimes I think about my boss and I should reach out to him because I'm going to New York soon to visit. But he was such a great guy. My boss was amazing at this place. So Josh Groban used to come in. I don't know if you guys know Josh Groban. I can't off the top of my head think of a song he's done. Something about mountains, you know. But he was so kind, very, very kind, and him I would consider dating. Not that he would date me, but he was really good. I mean, it's just a long time ago, and I'm sure he's probably married or something right now. But he was a very kind person. Yeah, just always. I actually didn't recognize him because I don't really listen to his music. He does more like classical music, but I used to get him often. Actually, he would come like, I would say once a month or once every 2 weeks, and he would end up in my section. I don't think he asked to be there, and he was just always so kind, very, very kind guy, and considerate. You know, and you can always tell by how somebody's treated somebody by how they treat their waitress and so forth. I was actually talking with a friend about how I used to date this guy that I could tell, well, I was younger then, and he used to treat the wait staff not well when we go out, and it was just so unpleasant to me, and I couldn't figure out why. And looking back, I'm like, that's why I didn't like him, because I don't like when people treat people who serve them like they're below them, you know, because we all need each other. So the other one, I don't know if I would date him, but I found him very attractive. It was Gavin Rossdale, and that I met him, he came to my yoga class. He was very kind. He was very in shape, very good looking. And we kind of spoke after class, but I was like, you know, I don't date my yoga students. And at the time, I had just gotten out of a relationship with a famous Scorpio, and I think he's a Scorpio. He gives me Scorpio energy. I was like, I'm good. I'm very good. But he was very attractive, cool guy, surprisingly cool, actually, because I'd heard horror stories. Well, not heard, but you know how the media loves to paint people a certain way. And I didn't even recognize him, only when I saw, like, his name, because at the yoga studio I had to write down Gavin Rossdale. I actually have a story about that. I don't know if I should tell you now. Okay, I'm just going to say. I'm going to finish my Gavin Rossdale story. But they had to write down their names. I was like, Gavin Rossdale. But he is a lot older than I am, and when he was famous, I was a baby, practically. I was a toddler or baby, so I'm not really familiar. I don't even know what group he's in. I just know that he was married to Gwen Stefani, and that's how I mostly know him from. So, well, not know him, but know of him. So yeah, and I've always been a huge fan of Gwen Stefani's music, from No Doubt, you know, to later. So, at that same yoga studio, Idina Menzel used to come in. And speaking of rude celebrities, I wouldn't say she was rude, but she just had this air of like, I know everything. And I never watched Frozen. I actually did some research about her after. I never watched Frozen, and I didn't really know her, you know, because I don't really other than Glee, I remember seeing her in Glee because I love Glee. Glee's one of my favorite shows of all time. I remember that I saw her somewhere. Oh my gosh, I have so many stories now that I think about it, about the yoga studio regarding celebrities. So I'm gonna continue to do more, but let me just finish telling the story. So she wrote down her name. Like I said before, you had to write down your name. And I saw Idina Menzel, and I was like, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing her name properly, because I didn't really know who she was, And I know it sounds crazy. Like, afterwards, I did some research on her, and I found out that she was married to Tay Diggs and so forth. But there was a time in my life that I didn't really watch TV and stuff like that. I was at the yoga studio a lot, so I didn't really pay attention to politics, to anything really. So, and I think it was around the time when she became famous, because I really did not know who she was. I'd seen her, like I said, on Glee, but she didn't stick out to me, to be honest. So I was pronouncing her name, and I was like, Idina, that's right, that's how you say it? And she was like, yes, like, I should know. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic in her response, but her response was like, how do you not know who I am? And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a ride. This is just before the class. So during the class, I'm busy instructing, so forth and so forth. I actually remember it was around the time that COVID happened, because I got COVID, but I wasn't feeling well. I remember that. Like, after I came back, my voice kind of sounded like this. And I was projecting my voice, but I had a new person in class. So the new person was right next to her, and they were doing Eagle. I was instructing Eagle. If you don't know Eagle, it's like where you wrap your arms around like ropes. And she was telling the other person next to her what to do. So I was like, please focus on your practice. Like, look forward, So she was like, no, telling the other person, no, don't do it like this, do it like this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what a disaster. So yeah, that was my experience with her. And I was like, I could just tell though, she has diva vibes, very controlling diva vibes. But that's one of my stories from the yoga studio. I have more to come. So okay, somebody asked me about a couple that they saw. So this was like 10 years ago. I used to work at this bar in Soho. It was on Houston and Grand, right there. Was it on Houston? Is that Houston? No, that's West Broadway. It was West Broadway and Grand, like right on the corner. And I used to work there Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and Monday. I used to work weekends there all the time as a bartender. So we get a lot of celebrities in, obviously, especially during the springtime. Actually, no, just in general. But I worked there from, I remember how long. I think I worked there from December. It was such a mess, that place. Oh my gosh. So I was bartending, and Fergie and her husband at the time, Josh, what's his name? Josh something. Josh Duhamel, that's the word. So many Joshes. And they came in and they sat right in front of me. And she had similar Cameron Diaz energy, but she was more nice about it. Still condescending and kind of like rude-ish. But he was very sweet, very kind. He was like, thank you. You could tell I just got the vibe. She was a Hollywood girl, I didn't really know a lot about Fergie. I love Black Eyed Peas. But personally, I remember seeing that she had some connection to the Caribbean or something like that. But the energy that I got when they sat down was she was very Hollywood. And he was just like a down-to-earth. You could tell he came from like the middle of nowhere. And he was just grateful to be in the limelight, if that makes any sense. So he was just very humble. Thank you, how are you? I didn't even recognize that was him after. I recognized her because she was like very showy, very extra. She had a fur coat on, black pants. I can't believe I remember this because it was 10 years ago. And yeah, she was just very, very extra. Over 10 years ago, actually. She was very extra, and it just gave me insight to a lot of Hollywood relationships. When the one person has grown up in Hollywood or California, because a lot of California is very fake, and the other person's from a down-to-earth town, or it just, you can see the difference in their interaction, how they deal with people. And it just gave me a lot of insight to, like, that's why I think a lot of their marriages don't work out, because the one is not authentic and the other, he was a very authentic person. Yeah. So yeah, and somebody asked me to have more stories about rude people. I will get to that. I told you one. I didn't tell. I do have one. She wasn't necessarily rude, but at the place that I used to manage in Tribeca, we got like a New York Times write-up of, like, a New York Times is, like, obviously quite influential, and every time they do a write-up on a restaurant, it does usually very well. So we got a New York Times write-up, and after that we just, like, did so well. There was, like, skyrockets in sales, celebrities coming in all the time. That's when Cameron Diaz came in. And one night, because we were fully booked, we'd be, like, packed to the max. So one night, I used to do the reservations. Obviously, as a manager, I'd come in, look at the reservations, adjust things, and so forth and so forth. I was kind of on the floor like a maitre, type, but I did administration stuff too. So one night I was looking at the reservations and I saw Meryl Streep, and I was like, oh, I looked at the notes and it said she is coming in with, I think it was 3 friends. This was a long time ago, so please, I think it was like 5-6 years ago. So I was like, okay, cool, she's coming in. It was around the time she had a show, a famous show. I stopped following Meryl Streep because I don't like how she's very vocal about politics. I don't really like when my celebrities are vocal about politics and, like, make fun of other people for voting a certain way. I really, really don't like that. That's when I distance myself from certain celebrities in terms of, like, watching them and so forth. So I used to be a Meryl Streep fan of acting, but I just stopped. Anyways, long story short, she had a show coming out, and I think she was, like, celebrating it or something. It was connected to that. I can't fully remember, but I was looking at the iPad, looking at the reservations. I remembered that, and then I went and I did something else. Then later on, somebody called, so I had to answer the phone. I answered. This was, I'm not going to say the restaurant name, but that restaurant, how may I help? This is Honey speaking. How may I help you? And she was like, this is Meryl Streep. And I was like, oh, hi, good evening. And she was like, I made a reservation for, and I can't remember the time. And I was like, she's like, I have to cancel because I have other things to attend to. And it just gave me, like, condescending. I don't know if I was maybe in my mind, but I just felt this, like, condescending energy come from her, and I was like, oh, okay. Thank you so much. Take care. And that was it. Like, I think she wanted me to grovel at her. But yeah, that's my Meryl Streep story. I have a lot of other ones too that I'm going to tell you all about soon, so stay tuned. I love you all. If you have any questions that you want to hear my personal stories about other people, please write them in the comment section. I love you all, and thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please also consider being a member. I offer a great membership, so check out the perks in my membership tab.